All right, we're going to kick off with something really enjoyable. Leave it to the Australian media, not U.S. media, not our liberal leftist lunatics in the American media. Leave it to the media in Australia to actually call out Kamala Harris for years of treasonous disservice in covering for old Joe Biden's mental decline. Kamala tried to serve her usual dish of cold word salad as a defense, and Australian Broadcasting Corporation's Sarah Ferguson, she's awesome, just wasn't having it. In the first part of this clip, Kamala tries to distract from a question about Joe Biden by, of course, talking about Trump. That's what they all do. Ferguson says, nice try, By the way, the U.S. mainstream media, I know you forgot, but this is what's called journalism.
Wasn't Joe Biden then, to put it on him, wasn't his refusal to recognize his own frailties the reason that you faced a nearly impossible task?
I ran against Donald Trump for president. And Donald Trump ran on a platform that was, in large part, I believe, misrepresenting his intentions to the American people. You combine that misrepresentation of intention with also what was at play in terms of massive amounts of mis and disinformation.
Now, forgive me.
And a truncated calendar in terms of the clock.
I want to interrupt you because that is a world-class pivot, but it is not the question that I asked you, which is about Joe Biden's failure to recognize his own frailties and what that did to you. The question is about Joe Biden. Are you still reluctant to criticize the former president?
In what regard, please?
Well, just in terms of that question. So you went on.
What exactly would you like to ask? Be more specific, if you don't mind.
Was it Joe Biden's decision, his failure to recognize his own frailties in that position, that put you in the position that made it almost impossible to win that race?
He was not frail as president of the United States.
But he had frailties. We all saw the debate.
I do believe that Joe Biden had the capacity to be president of the United States, and I have never doubted that he had the capacity to be president of the United States.
Told you're going to like it. Like I said, highly enjoyable. Clearly, Kamala Harris, must have signed some sort of agreement. I don't know. Maybe she's not allowed to tell the truth because some kind of agreement must have been made, because she not only makes that ridiculous statement that Joe Biden was fit to be president and then even for another 4 years, which is clearly a lie, but she keeps on going, which is probably in line with that deal she made with, either the devil or the Democrat Party, because they're one and the same.
If you want to talk about whether he had the ability to endure what a race for president of the United States would require in that political environment in 2024, as I've said in the book, I had concerns.
I'm just wondering, is there a reason why you won't go to that prolonged frailty question? Now, we saw the debate, we saw the difficulty he had marshalling his thoughts.
I have answered that question. I do not believe that
I think it's just hard watching the debate to see how there could not be a problem long term with someone who can't marshal their thoughts. I'm not saying his acuity wasn't present.
I talked about that in the book. And I also mentioned the context in which that debate occurred. And you'll probably remember how I talked about that in terms of what his travel schedule had been, that what he had been enduring in terms of the timing of that debate. I talk about it extensively in the book. I'm not shying away from that. That's why I wrote it in the book, because I do know it's a question people had.
Here's the problem. It takes an Australian journalist to hold her accountable for the lies that she puts up. She said the same thing when she was running for president, when asked, was Joe Biden capable of being president when she was running? And she said the same thing. It was travel schedule. That's BS. The debate against Trump, where he got absolutely slaughtered, happened 10 days after he returned from his European trip or world trip, wherever he was, and they still said he was too tired to debate 10 days later. If he's too tired to debate 10 days later, he's too tired to be president for 1 minute. I almost said a bad word there. Democrats have resorted to new lower lows, as we've seen, calling President Trump an authoritarian, comparing him to Hitler every day, even referring to the entire Trump administration as Nazis. But now any Republican seems to be fair game to the party of violence, as Connecticut Congressman Jim Himes makes very, very clear.
Where does it stop? Do we now start executing drug dealers on the corners of Brooklyn? Where does it stop if all of a sudden the government, without telling anybody anything, can take this kind of lethal action just because they've decided that they've got the right to do so? If Lindsey Graham and other Republicans want to go the route of saying it's okay to kill people illegally just so long as the American public supports it, the American public needs to really think that through. There will be a Democratic president someday, and all my MAGA friends who are, cheering on these illegal killings need to imagine who gets killed when President Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says that it doesn't matter what the law says. She's going to do what she's going to do.
I tell you who gets killed when AOC's president. All those conservatives are going to blow our heads off because I don't want to see that either. He's basically saying if it's a Democrat president, they'll be able to kill MAGA. Interesting. Way to go, Himes, Connecticut. Good luck in re-election. Want to see a Democrat in true panic? This is really good. This is awesome. Watch Chuck Schumer doing what I guess we would call it damage control, because he's not only flushing his entire party down the drain, the future of it, over a government shutdown, but he's also doing serious damage to the country just to retain some so-called leverage that they think they're getting.
On Saturday, for the first time in American history, a vicious, heartless president is cutting off food stamps to hungry children, elderly who can't afford enough food to feed themselves, veterans who are down on their luck, all because he wants to use them as hostages so that Democrats will stop fighting for people's health care. This president is a liar. Republicans are trying the same failed play that they tried before. Get rid of health care for American people. You're on your own. If you can't afford health care, it's your fault. That's the Republican attitude.
The Obamacare precursor to the ACA, which is what we have right now, was written by Democrats. Every single Republican voted against it. It's their policy, it's their program, and it was set to expire. These payments that the Democrats are fighting about right now, they wrote it into the law to expire this year, next month, or beginning of November, next week. Their idea, their policy. We didn't want any part of it. Now they want to blame Trump for a government shutdown that they brought upon the country on their own. Another Democrat who's failed the American people over and over again, well, Bernie Sanders, right, fighting the oligarchy from really on high, right, on a private jet with AOC, flying around the country privately against the oligarchy. Bernie, who's responsible for keeping the shutdown going, is still deflecting, of course, to the president.
We are here today. Obey the law. I know that's a hard concept for the president, but obey the law. Do what Congress mandated you do. Do not let children in America and their parents and grandchildren go hungry. Do not go down as the first president in history to manufacture a hunger crisis.
Again, Bernie was there. Bernie was there when they wrote the law. It's on you, Bernie. Stop blaming Trump. You know what I'd say? I said, let it expire. Sorry, it's going to be tough for a lot of people. I get it. It's going to be tough. But the minute that the 1.8 million people on food stamps, EBT cards, when that runs out, I'm going to go and venture a guess that a lot of those folks are Democrat voters, and they're going to say to their elected officials, open the damn government. We need our EBT cards. Hold the line, Trump. Democrat Abigail Spanberger, disaster of a candidate for Virginia governor, seems to think that forcing people just to show an ID in order to exercise their democratic right to vote as citizens of this country will somehow stop them from wanting to do just that.
When someone chooses to vote absentee for the first time that they're also voting, there are additional hurdles. And they need to provide a photocopy of their driver's license. For some, they need to have a signature that's matched nearly identical to their voter registration. And some of these hurdles might really disadvantage newer voters and particularly younger voters.
One of the dumbest policies that the Democrats are putting their weight and force behind. Not only letting illegals ransack the country, but using an ID to vote. You need an ID to do everything now. Everything you need an ID. So, you know what? Get facial recognition. How's that? You want that? I'm a libertarian. I hate this idea, but it'll solve all the problems. You don't need an ID because we'll just use your face and see what happens. See how many potential Democrat votes get thrown out because they're not here legally. One more. late night hack Jimmy Kimmel actually thinks that the likes of AOC, Jasmine Crockett, two of the least qualified politicians around right now, would fare well against President Trump in a televised IQ duel, proving yet again that he's a shill for the Democrat Party.
For whatever reason, fat Albert Einstein has been boasting that he would crush two House Democrats, two he does not like, AOC and Jasmine Crockett, both of whom he deems to be low IQ in an IQ test. And so I, quite generously, I think, offered to host a competition between them. Ratings. Think of they will be huge. They'll be bigger than the night I came back after you tried to have me canceled.
Yeah, there's no reason to do that. In TV, you say don't punch down. This is what we do. When someone from a lower network or is just trying to aspire to get attention starts yapping like Kimmel's doing about AOC and Crockett, you don't punch down. It's not worth your time. There's no upside in it. You can only lose. Why would Trump punch down to AOC and Crockett? It would be punching way, way too down. Jimmy, moron.